So picture this. In just a single lifetime, America goes from a nation of farms, quiet and spread out, to an industrial powerhouse, noisy and bustling. It was this incredible transformation called the market revolution. Now, it created a ton of wealth and opportunity for sure, but it also, and this is key, planted the seeds for the Civil War. So was it progress or was it a massive problem? Let's get into it.
To really wrap our heads around how massive this change was, you have to imagine what America was like at the turn of the 19th century. Almost everyone lived on a farm. If you needed something like a pair of shoes or a rifle, it was probably made by hand, one at a time, by a craftsman in your town. Your whole world was basically local. You traded with your neighbors, and that was about it. Okay, now let's jump forward just a few decades to 1850. The country is almost unrecognizable. The North is just humming with factories. Things are being mass-produced, and because of new roads and canals and railroads, a farmer way out in Ohio can sell his wheat to a factory worker in Boston. The local economy, it's gone. It's been replaced by a national, market-driven economy. So this is the big question, right? In the span of a single human life, what on earth happened? How did this quiet agricultural republic completely reinvent itself into a fast-paced, competitive, capitalist society? Well, the answer is what historians call the market revolution. So what exactly was it? The market revolution was this huge, fundamental shift. And it wasn't just about cool new inventions. It was a change in everything: how people worked, how they bought and sold stuff, and even how they saw their own place in the world. It was a move away from making things for yourself and your community to making things to sell to strangers, far, far away. But this is where the story gets really, really interesting. Historians are completely split on whether this whole revolution was a good thing or a bad thing. Was it this amazing leap forward, or was it a tragic loss of a better, more democratic way of life? Believe me, this is not a settled story. It's a full-blown historical debate. And at the very heart of this debate, you've got two major historians. On one side, there's Charles Sellers. He sees the market as the villain of the story. He argues that a handful of powerful capitalists basically forced this dog-eat-dog system on everybody else, wrecking a more equal, democratic society. But on the other side, you've got Daniel Locker Howe. He sees the market as a tool. He says, look, people weren't victims. They actively chose to jump into this new economy to make their lives better. And Sellers' argument is really powerful. For him, this wasn't just about money. He says it created capitalist hegemony, basically total domination over every part of American life, from our politics to our culture. In his view, it was like this unstoppable bulldozer that just flattened everything that came before it. But then Howe's counterargument just flips that whole idea on its head. He asks, well, what if the market wasn't some kind of monster acting on people? What if it was just a resource, a tool that people picked up and chose to use for their own reasons? This view frames the whole thing as a conscious choice, not a conquest. So to really get a handle on this debate, we have to look at what was actually driving all this change. What were the inventions and ideas that literally rewired an entire nation? Well, it all kicks off with technology. Okay, it is honestly hard to overstate how big a deal this idea was, something Eli Whitney really perfected. Before this, every single product was unique. If a part on your gun broke, a gunsmith had to painstakingly handcraft a new one just for you. But with interchangeable parts, every trigger, every barrel, every little screw was exactly the same. That meant you could suddenly mass-produce things, assemble them with less skilled workers, and fix them in a snap. This was, no joke, the birth of modern manufacturing. And this tech revolution wasn't just happening in factories. It totally transformed the farm. You had John Deere's steel plow, which could just slice through that tough prairie soil that would have broken the old wooden plows. And then came Cyrus McCormick's mechanical reaper, which let one farmer do the work of 5 people, making it possible to harvest these absolutely gigantic fields of wheat. And this right here is the absolute key. For the first time, on a massive scale, these new inventions created huge surpluses of food. Farmers out west were growing way, way more than their local towns could ever possibly eat. All that extra food had to go somewhere, and its market was in the booming factory cities of the Northeast. But here's the great irony. This new interconnected economy, it didn't actually bring everyone together. The very same progress that was linking the country's regions also started creating these deep divisions that would eventually tear it apart. You see, by the 1820s and 30s,
America had basically developed three different economies in one country, all linked together. You had the North, which was the hub for business, manufacturing, and trade. You had the South, completely dominated by plantation agriculture, mostly cotton. And then you had the West, which was the nation's breadbasket, just full of farms producing all that surplus food. They all needed each other, but what they wanted, well, that started to get very, very different. And here is the great, awful tragedy of the market revolution. Those textile mills in the North, they were booming, making people incredibly rich. But what was the fuel for those mills? Cotton. And where did all that cotton come from? From the slave plantations of the South. So the North's industrial growth was directly, and I mean directly, fueling the demand for more enslaved labor in the South. It made the institution of slavery more brutal, more entrenched, and more profitable than it had ever been. It didn't take long for this economic reality to become a political nightmare. As the country pushed westward, the one question that eclipsed everything else was, would these new states be free or slave? So when Missouri applied to become a state in 1819, it set off an absolute political firestorm because it threatened to destroy the delicate balance of power between the free and slave states in Congress. And make no mistake, this wasn't just politics as usual. The nation's founders were terrified. Thomas Jefferson himself called the Missouri crisis a fire bell in the night. He said he considered it the knell of the Union, like a funeral bell. He knew even then that this issue, born from the country's own economic growth, could literally destroy everything. So all of this brings us back to our big debate. Was the market revolution the villain that Charles Sellers described, or was it the tool that Daniel Walker Howe imagined? You know, maybe the most important thing to realize is that the debate itself is what really matters. The arguments between these two historians force us to ask some really fundamental questions. Did everyone actually benefit from all this progress? Or did it just create a new system of winners and losers? Did it empower people with more choices? Or did it just trap them in a ruthless new system? And was it a choice people made, or just an unstoppable force? And to see just how complicated this is, think about this one amazing example from Daniel Walker Howe. In 1815, a mattress cost $50, a ridiculous luxury that almost no one could afford. By 1848, that same mattress cost just $5. People's actual standard of living got better. That's a real tangible plus. But was it worth the cost? The growing inequality, the brutal factory conditions, the entrenchment of slavery? That's the dilemma. Look, this is not just some dusty old argument from a history book. We are still living inside the world that the market revolution created. Every time we argue about globalization or automation or income inequality, we are basically having the same debate that Sellers and Howe were having. And so that leaves us with this final, massive question. Is the economic system we have a tool that we, as a society, can actually control and shape to benefit everyone? Or has it become a force that is so powerful that it now controls us? Thinking about the market revolution doesn't give us an easy answer, but it sure makes that question impossible to ignore.